All right, great. Thanks for everybody for coming back. Almost everybody.
Would members of the Community Development and Recreation Committee please report to Committee Room 1 for quorum? Thank you. Attention, please. Would members of the Community Development and Recreation Committee please report to Committee Room 1 for quorum? Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. I hope you had a nice lunch. As you may recall, we had finished off deputations for the Toronto Poverty Reduction Strategy. We also considered questions to the presentation as questions to staff. We are technically at the speakers list. Before we go to speakers, I just want to point out to visiting members and all members that this item will keep coming back to us as we've requested, because this is ground zero in poverty reduction, the standing committee. So there may not be a requirement for everyone to speak on this issue because it is an ongoing, evolving conversation. That being said, I'm taking speakers list now for those who would like to say a few words. There is one motion, so I assume Councillor Fletcher will be on the speakers list. Councillor Fletcher.
Yes, I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Chair, for putting that on the agenda so we could hear all of the amazing work that's being done for the poverty reduction strategy, or the successful city strategy, whatever we're going to end up finally branding it as. But, and the emphasis, very important, the five things. I do want to just focus again on the jobs and community benefits piece, which I think is very critical to reducing poverty and having people work. I'm excited that staff said they would undertake looking at, oh, I'm moving a motion up there, thank you, which has to do with youth. And any barriers, to identify any barriers for those youth most vulnerable to crime and violence in the city, and including police-youth relations as directed by the council through their youth equity strategy. And the youth equity strategy is part of that poverty reduction strategy. So it really is focusing in on youth and the most vulnerable youth of the city in poverty reduction, and how to make sure the world will be better for them. I don't know, last year on this committee, and I don't think you were here, Mr. Chair, we did hear about barriers with CPIC, and the second your name is on a list that when you go in to get clearance for a job, it just seems to turn up there. And now our hiring is impacted by that in recreation. So this, I think, is a pretty important thing in looking for a job strategy and the city's job strategy for youth. I hope members will support it. Also, I'll just go back to the community benefits. We're a large employer. Size matters. And we have large agencies. We have the TTC, we have Toronto Community Housing, we have many ways to ensure that youth are being trained. We have some good examples. I don't think we use our weight enough. We don't throw our weight enough around when it comes to insisting on training and inclusion for jobs. It's very easy just to hire people that are know the job, rather than train for the job. So we have some good initiatives. I'd like that to be very much part of this. And I also think tower renewal is pretty important because, again, that's a big jobs piece. So city's being built out in an unprecedented way right now, and I'm not sure that we're hiring from within in an unprecedented way. So look forward to this moving forward and being hard-edged, that we're not dealing with policy, the very practical application, measuring how well we're doing, measuring again, and that is how we will decide if we're successful. Thank you.
Anyone else on the speakers list? I'll just mention a couple of things in closing. Thanks to Deputy Mayor McConnell for coming today to the committee to update us. Thank you very much to all the deputants who came by to share our views. It is truly one of the most complex public policy challenges that we have faced since at least the mid-60s in modern times, as the president of that time launched his war on poverty. And then comes the debate on how best do we do it? How do we take finite dollars and make them work as best we can? Our great challenge here is that we're in a federal system. So much of the legislation that governs the Income Tax Act is driven from Ottawa. The education piece is primarily driven from Queen's Park and the local school board, but we too have some very powerful tools at our disposal that we can also leverage. Unfortunately, because making things work in a federal system is always a challenge, we can't control all levers that are available, but certainly the ones that we can make them work. And I think that's the key point. In discussions with many people, they're not looking for bigger government or smaller government. They're looking for better government, smarter government that can take the dollars it has and the programs it has and make sure that they're highly targeted and leveraged and make sure that they produce the best results possible. But we would be counting on our education system, on the various legislation that's driven out of both the province and the federal government to be partners with us. And from what I can see, they are committed to the well-being of children, to reduce disparities in income. But as always with social policy, we can always do better. So with that, I believe we have one motion before us. If we can just get it on the screen. And this would go to Councillor Cressy and the youth equity strategy via the acting executive director.
It wouldn't go to Councillor Cressy. It would come back here, as far as I understand from within the power.
It would just go to Councillor Cressy for information.
Thank you.
All those in favor? It's carried. The item is amended. All those in favor? Carried. Thanks very much. All right, so we're at item number 3, Toronto Children's Services plan. We have a short presentation. And we have a speakers list as well.
Oh, there we go.
Great. Thanks for coming. If you feel you don't have enough time, certainly with questions, you can kind of squeeze in anything you might have left out in the 10-minute presentation.
Okay, I will make it brief.
Right, thanks.
So we're very proud to be here today to present the next service plan for the Toronto Children's Services Division. This plan will cover the years 2015 to 2019. This is actually the 5th service plan that Children's Services has undertaken. We began the process in 1992, and we found over the years service planning has benefited the division in many ways. First, as the designated service system manager, we are required by the province to develop a service plan. Service planning guides how we plan and manage early learning services in Toronto, provides the opportunity to review our achievement, responds to change, and also enables us to set ambitious goals for the coming 5 years. As a policy leader in the sector, it also guides Children's Services in building a city that is supportive of parents and families. And as the manager and administrator of public funds, it guides how we invest funds in children and families across Toronto. And finally, as a community partner, it's a way of doing integrated planning with the multitude of agencies and organizations that we work with across the city. I want to just give a quick highlight of some of the accomplishments from our last plan, and you will find a more comprehensive list of these in attachment 2 of the staff report that's before you today. As you know, the last 5 years in childcare has been a period of tremendous change with the introduction of full-day kindergarten and the move of responsibility from the Ministry of Children and Youth Services to the Ministry of Education. Throughout this change, we were able to validate our quality assessment tool, and we now have the only validated tool for measuring quality in early childhood settings in Canada. We were also able to grow the system, and this is one of the benefits of full-day kindergarten. We were able to grow the system by 8,200 spaces and 1,116 subsidies. And finally, we were able to work with the community and lead it through the transition to full-day kindergarten. Service planning in Toronto is a comprehensive process which requires thorough analysis and research into the current demographics of children and families. And here on the screen are just some of the key trends that we experience here in Toronto. Toronto has a population of about 350,000 children that are from birth to age 12, and 25% of these children, as we heard a great deal about this morning, are living below the low-income measure. We are the second largest childcare system in Canada, second only to Quebec. This is something that is incredibly important, with 78% of mothers in the workforce, and with childcare being identified as a real pillar to reversing the poverty cycle. However, the childcare system as it stands right now addresses about 20% of the population. This slide illustrates the basket of services and programs that Children's Services manages that make up the entire system. A comprehensive description of each of these services is included in Part C of the service plan. The reason we look at it this way is to ensure that children move through the system and access programs and services that are developmentally appropriate to their needs. And this ensures that they have a relatively seamless mobility through the early learning years. This slide, we are trying to really illustrate the importance of childcare and children's services in healthy city building. Our services, like childcare, provide vital and immediate supports to individual families, but they also have far-reaching and systematic impacts in terms of our social, economic, and community development objectives as a city. As a champion for Toronto's children, the service plan, Children's Services has tried to demonstrate how supporting families is connected to broader city building and healthy child outcome objectives. As part of this approach, the service plan identifies what we consider to be key drivers of change or key influencers on the childcare system. And on children's services overall. As you'll see on the screen, there are a number of municipal drivers, and the service plan does strive to assure that the directions of children's services align with other significant municipal initiatives, including the Strong Neighbourhood Strategy and the Poverty Reduction Strategy. Provincially, we've developed a service plan that will enable us to implement provincial policy in a locally responsive manner, and a couple of the key drivers that you've heard about a great deal in the last 5 years is the Ontario Early Years Policy Framework and the shared accountability with school boards. And finally, there are broader system drivers of change, and that one is obviously the need to continue to improve the quality of childcare and to continue to improve our opportunity to address vulnerable populations. The service plan was developed over the course of a year and included significant community engagement. On the screen, you will see a list of all of the various agencies, individuals, and advocates that we consulted with. In addition, we held 2 parent summits and had 2 online questionnaires for parents that generated over 4,000 responses. In terms of face-to-face meetings, we met with over 300 individuals and received guidance from a variety of groups, including academics, childcare providers, and other stakeholders, and the boards of education, one of our key stakeholders going forward. In developing the service plan, one of the things that we were asked to do by those we consulted with was to ensure that we clearly articulated a vision for childcare going forward. And this builds on previous visions put forth by the city. Our vision is that all children will have access to a continuum of services and programs that support their individual needs. Families will know where to find meaningful and affordable programs and services when they need them. Communities are invested in promoting the well-being of their children and families. Service providers are equipped with the tools that they require to provide high-quality services, including innovative training, learning opportunities, and meaningful partnerships. And the system is transformed to be nimble, responsive, integrated, and accountable. The service plan before you is divided into 5 strategic directions, and I will talk to each of these very briefly. The first strategic directive is really the priority for us in the coming years, and that is ensuring access to high-quality childcare. This includes actions that address the availability, affordability, and quality of childcare in Toronto. The availability of childcare is our biggest challenge and a priority. We currently have 64,700 licensed childcare spaces in Toronto, and if you'll remember, I identified we have a child population of about 350,000. These 64,000 only meet the needs of 19% of the child population. Actions under this section of the service plan are intended to try to reverse that trend and increase the availability of space and subsidies. Our first priority in order to accommodate those that need it is to increase the inventory of physical space available to serve the community. And many of you have heard me use the same example, but I will cite it again today. At one point during the summer, we had 61 vacant infant spaces in the entire city of Toronto, while we had 600 parents with infants with subsidies ready to be used but nowhere to take their children. There is a desperate shortage of space for infants and toddlers in the city, and we're working hard with all of our partners to address this. The slide summarizes a number of committed projects that are in the pipe through our Schools First capital program, the Children's Services capital budget, and other sources that will come up with a minimum of 1,100 spaces over the next 5 years. This number will increase as opportunities across the city increase. We have identified an additional need of 450 spaces to properly address just the subsidies that are available for children and infants and toddlers in the city. So there is a lot of capital work that has to be done. With respect to middle childhood programs for children aged 6 to 12, this could be licensed childcare or programs like the afternoon recreation and care. You see on the map they're available across the city. What we have to ensure in this age group over the coming years is the continuation and the continuum of service as children age from kindergarten into school age. Our short-term goal is to ensure that every school that has a full-day kindergarten before and after school program have a corresponding program for school-aged children. A second objective is to continue to expand the number of before and after school programs available. And this ties directly to the poverty strategy. These spaces are much more affordable given the universal 6 hours of school care the children receive, and is instrumental in helping some parents get back into the workforce. There is also a need to increase childcare fee subsidies. We currently have 25,116 fee subsidies. I'm pleased to say this will increase over the course of the year as full-day kindergarten's benefits are fully realized. Needless to say, however, the number of subsidies we currently have address 7% of children in Toronto, or 29% of children that are living below the low-income measure. So it's woefully small for the level of need that we have out there. What we've tried to do in this slide is show various scenarios of system expansion and show you just how significantly costly it is to grow the childcare system, but similarly how important it is. And so as you see, going from our status quo to simply addressing the children on our wait list would require an investment in operating dollars of $179 million. That does not include the capital that would also be needed to serve this growth. And we provide other scenarios. We like the 30% one, but we think we have a ways to go. So now we'll go on to the second strategic direction, which is inclusive support for all families. Actions in this section are intended to address barriers to accessing service as well as vulnerabilities within children and families. They include aligning with the city's poverty reduction strategy, strengthening our model of providing support to children with extra support needs, and specific initiatives catered to improving access and inclusivity for Aboriginal, French language, LGBTQ, and newcomer families. And we had separate consultations with each of those broader communities where we really heard that many families did not see themselves reflected in the pedagogy and programming provided in childcare centres. The third strategic direction is engagement, partnership, and communications. Everything we do in children's services is reliant on partnerships with the boards of education and other community partners, especially on the capital front. Going forward, we're committed to continuing to enhance our communication and partnerships. Two priorities are finding alternative ways to consult with parents that are more effective and easier for parents to participate in, and also to develop a strong partnership and joint planning initiatives with the school boards, and this is something that is now supported by provincial legislation. The fourth and second last strategic direction is a system change, and in this capacity we'll be looking at introducing a new funding model for childcare operators in Toronto, which will help to get at affordability and accessibility, and that will be at the next committee meeting of this committee. We're also looking at what additional supports we can give to service providers to enable them to continue to build their quality and remain financially viable. We're looking at strengthening the licensed home childcare sector and are embarking on a review of home childcare in Toronto. And we're looking at consolidating within the city, planning for middle years programs to ensure that all of the divisions involved in these initiatives are working together and making the best use of resources. The final area that we talk about is leadership in childcare, and I'm very proud that Toronto has been a leader in childcare for many years, and the province continues to rely on us for our expert advice, our research capacity, and our data in terms of assisting them in developing their policies. In terms of some of the priorities in this area, we're looking at service integration in the human services sector to ensure that from the client's perspective, they tell their story once and don't have to go to 3 different divisions to get the supports that they need. This does not mean that the three different divisions will have to interact individually with that client, but certainly on the intake at the first tier, we'll be working together to ensure that that's as simplified as possible. We're also looking at opportunities to support the childcare workforce, which in many areas of the city is among the lowest paid workforce in Toronto, and a key component of the poverty reduction strategy. Our funding model, as you will see next month, is looking at what ways in which the city can encourage those operators from whom we purchase service to pay a decent wage. So priorities for 2015 and 2016 are listed on the screen, and as I mentioned, the immediate priorities are the funding model and ensuring that we're driving an aggressive capital strategy to bring to the table the spaces that we need. In terms of this committee, you'll be seeing the childcare funding model at the next meeting, and we'll also be reporting, as per our budget direction, on opportunities for reducing the division's reliance on its reserve fund while maintaining its service levels. That was a very quick overview, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Okay, thanks very much. What we're going to do is we're going to consider this questions for staff. If that's okay. So let's roll. I'll take a list. Councillor Davis? Oh, no questions. Oh, Councillor McConnell?
So I have a question with regards to the interface between recreation and the new planning as we're moving forward. So if I could just frame it in the following way. I get that we're not ready yet to have all of the school-age daycare that we need as a result of the ongoing change in kindergarten. Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's been an issue. I also get that we've been using the ARC program to look at how we might be able to do that. How, or as you're moving into an implementation to resolve those issues, how are you looking to manage the fact that the ARC program is actually just during the school year, not during the summer months, and how would that, for sure it's only after 4, but I get that as well, but is there a mechanism to interface while you're moving towards a more resolved issue?
Yes, there is. First of all, with the new ARC programs, they are operating year-round.
Yeah.
Just double-checking that. Not yet?
they're not.
Okay, sorry. The goal is that there would be care available year-round. What currently happens in the division is instrumental in facilitating the transfer in the summer periods is moving the children over to summer camp programs.
Right.
And this happens in the childcare sector as well. The YMCA, for example, in
Yep.
the summer moves many of its children over to camp programs.
Okay. So we're looking at trying to work that through fairly seamlessly.
Right.
So that, I think, ARC is an excellent program, but it's also right now a stopgap for a hole in the system, if I could put it that way. So it has two functions. So with the ARC program, there will be a movement to transition children from one seamlessly into the other and then back again. Is that correct?
That would be our intention.
Yes.
And everything Children's Services does, including the before and after programs for full-day kindergarten, our intent is to ensure year-round care for the children.
Right. Right. Great. Thank you.
Councillor Ainsley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to ask about the 19% statistic of when it comes to enough childcare spots. Have we ever done like an economic analysis? I saw some statements about economic benefits of childcare. Have we ever done an economic analysis or cost-benefit analysis of what it's costing us not to have the other 81% in childcare?
No, we haven't. And I did hear some great statistics this morning in terms of the economic impact of childcare that one of the deputants raised. It's something that we could look at as one of our research objectives.
Okay, you don't.
We haven't looked at it in that broad a sense. There has certainly been work done through United Way and other agencies to look at the economic impact of getting mothers and parents into the workforce through childcare
Right.
and reducing social services and other costs as a result.
Okay. And so I don't need to move a motion to do that. You would just do that? Or try and do that or incorporate that somewhere along
I
the
think as we're reporting on various things through the year, we can take a closer look at economic impacts.
Okay.
We're happy to do that.
And then there was another, this excellent report, by the way. I found it very helpful and beneficial, especially looking at my area of Ward 43 and the surrounding areas in Scarborough. But somewhere I read, it said that we're trying to bring each ward within 10% of its ward equity target. By the current financial resources we have, how long will that take?
A long time. It requires another 2,200 subsidies and about $24 million. So we might be able to get that cost down slightly once we reflect the true savings of full-day kindergarten.
Yeah.
But I would suspect that at most we get it down by maybe $5 to $10 million. So we're still a long ways away.
Okay. And then if I look at,
And that, sorry, Councillor Karen
That's
just
okay.
pointed out that that does exclude the capital that we would need to accommodate those children, so you'd also have to build additional spaces.
you know, which kind of leads to my next question. With daycare facilities or buildings, where we're looking at spacing issues so do we track like the number of daycare centers that are built every year or?
We
if
do.
they're-
We have a comprehensive database we write down to the number of rooms and the number of spaces
Okay, and that's right across the city?
across the city.
And we track that on an annual basis?
Yes, we
whether-
do. Yep. And you'll see we have a fact sheet that's posted on our website. It goes up quarterly, and those numbers are publicized in that fact sheet.
Okay, all
So
right.
you can see some change over the years.
And then you can do that by ward as well, because I saw one of the charts, for
Yes,
example,
we can
Ward
do it all
43, it
by
had two sets of numbers, I guess, for daycare spots that are being utilized now, and spaces that I would need in my ward.
Yeah, to bring it up to equity and to serve the population, that's right. And those are updated also. I think the ward reports we do annually, and they're updated annually, and it's available now.
Okay. And when you talk about like the $24 million that we would need to get the other 81% of the spots, if I was in,
That 24 million would only bring, it would ensure that all wards in the city were within 10% of equity. It would by no means address parent demand. If we're currently addressing 19% of parent demand, that $24 million would bring us up to 21, 22% of the population. It's still, this system needs significant growth before we see a real change in that.
okay. And that money, if I was in Quebec, if we were in Quebec, for example, that money would be coming from the provincial government?
Combination of provincial and federal, yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you, appreciate it. I'll keep going.
It's going on.
Now that I've seen the advanced circulation, I have some.
Councillor Davis is ready.
Councillor Davis, questions?
Does the city have a long-standing policy to expand and to fund that expansion for the nonprofit sector only?
Yes, the council-approved policy goes back 10 years, and it supports expansion in the public and not-for-profit sectors only for reason of quality, health and safety, and financial accountability.
And is the policy of the provincial government as well to fund the expansion of public and nonprofit only, particularly in schools?
That's correct. Both the province and the school boards have that policy, and provincial capital dollars for expansion have been targeted at the not-for-profit and public sectors.
So would you have concerns if there was a motion to delete action number 37, which is that the expansion take place in the nonprofit and public sector?
Yes, I would have concerns. In order to keep the quality, to drive quality in the childcare sector, that not-for-profit and public sector approach is critical. And we have extensive research supporting this, research that we've commissioned ourselves from Gordon Cleveland and others, as well as research that other governments have commissioned that have supported the importance of focusing on not-for-profit and public delivery.
And we actually have Toronto-specific data on quality as well.
We do,
that
yes.
Dr. Cleveland did.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the Interactions Council also which is our key area, because that's the area that leads most to child development. The interactions in the not-for-profit and public sector are much stronger than they are in the commercial. That's the
Okay.
interaction between staff and children.
Okay. And I guess I'll have, if I'm allowed, questions on the mover of all of these motions. I have not had time to read them, but I don't know if you have as well. Have you seen the advanced
No.
circulation of amendments to your report?
No, I haven't.
Mr. Chair, I think it's only fair if the general manager has a chance to see what amendments you're recommending to her report. And to,
The clerk has circulated it to everybody, advanced circulation.
but not to the staff.
Everybody it's a public document, everybody is welcome. Oh, there we go.
And so I'm wondering if I could have the remainder of my 2.5 minutes after I too have had a chance to look at this and have our staff review it.
You've had your time. Your clock is running.
Okay, on page 27, how we spend it. Be amended to include dollars. Page 28. Are you aware on page 28, licensed and regulated? Be added at the beginning of the term childcare. No, I don't. Mr. Chair, I can't read these and ask questions about them. I just said I'm not asking any further questions.
Are there any other questions for staff? I do. Oh, are you sure? So under our umbrella, we control directly or indirectly about a little over 64,000 spaces. Is that, am I reading that correctly?
That's
Licensed
correct. That
childcare
includes home childcare.
spaces. And we can offer a subsidy on how many?
25,100.
And we have another 16,000 on the waiting list, 17,000 on the waiting list.
That's correct.
So the 17,000 could very well be within the 64,000. They could be
Oh,
in
they
our
are part of
system and
that,
then.
yes.
Are they all in our system or they're parked or
No,
what?
sorry, the 25,000 subsidies are all in the 64. The 17,000, a small amount of them will be in the system with parents paying the full fee. The majority of them, though, cannot afford to do that and are on the wait list. I think it's 68%? 68% of our subsidy recipients are 100% subsidized, so they're of the lowest income.
Now, there's different categories of childcare. There is the standalone that we operate ourselves.
There's the public, which is operated through Toronto Early Learning and Childcare, which is part of my division.
Right?
There's not-for-profit, and in the not-for-profit sector, there's multi-site operators like the YMCA, multi-purpose agencies run childcare services, and then there's also standalone one or two operators with one or two sites.
All right. Any in-home or?
Then within Toronto, there are 19 home childcare agencies, and that is that portion of the home childcare sector that is regulated, that we would always encourage parents to go through. And that sector accounts for about 3,000 licensed childcare spaces in homes,
So those would be delivered in private homes,
in private homes, yes.
and those are privately run.
They're privately run, the agencies are not-for-profit, and the not-for-profit agencies contract with private home providers.
Now,
They're not
in our house-
incorporated, they're private home
They're
providers.
privately run, privately operated, but licensed.
They're licensed and associated with a not-for-profit agency, which manages control, financial viability, capacity building, quality.
Are you happy with that model, or?
The agency is licensed, yes. Pardon
Yeah.
me?
They're licensed, of course, but
Yes.
they're in a private home. Is that model working?
Yes, our preference would always be to expand group care. Licensed home childcare does work. It obviously works. A number of parents rely on it. It sometimes is better for children with extra support needs that are not good in larger groups of people, but we generally would prefer growth in the licensed group centres because there's much more accountability and visibility. The quality of locations when you're in homes is quite diverse.
Now, you've got three.
And also, the key component I should point out is, by and large, home providers are not qualified, whereas if you go into the licensed group centre, you've got registered early childhood educators.
Right, but am I reading your statistics right? 5% of the children under our care are in-home childcare.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, okay.
The system does rely on it, yes.
When it comes to the portability of subsidies, would you say that currently our subsidy options are fairly restricted in how we can do things, or it's pretty well within the range that we can start whittling down on this waiting list of 17,000?
The subsidy travels with the family. The family is able to use that subsidy, and any licensed group centre or any licensed through any licensed home childcare agency that has a purchase of service agreement with the city. We purchase services from 661 661 groups care centres and from 9 home childcare agencies.
So someone could take that subsidy with the portability of it and go to an agency that's covered in the 661, and it would be acceptable. It could be.
Oh, absolutely. It's parental choice. Once the parent can go to any of these centres or agencies with which we have a contract.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mahavik.
Thank you. I thought this was going to be pretty straightforward, but now, have you seen this motion by the chair?
I just got it a few moments ago.
You haven't seen it beforehand?
No,
Wasn't discussed during the briefing or anything like that?
no.
Okay, I'm just going to start with my 2 questions. First is, in the expansion, any strategies towards expansion or redoing this subsidy is premised on the assumption, and just to give you a bit of background, in my wards, I'm ahead in some of the areas, and I'm behind in other areas. And of course, I want to be ahead in all areas, but we got to worry about the whole system and not just our particular ward. But what I'm assuming in this, and I think I just want to confirm, in the areas for councillors whose child care subsidies are ahead, we're going to achieve equity not by taking from them, but by building in the areas that are behind.
That's right. All of our calculations have assumed that, and that's simply because even though some wards are over equity, no ward is overserved. The system is too small.
Right, so we'll expand the system by basically catching the low balls either in before and after care
Right.
or during the regular care. Okay, and I think that's a fair principle. In page 29, you have your graph of growing the system, and 179 to eliminate the wait list, and that basically it would serve the existing people who are on the wait list who are low income. The bill would be 179. If we were to do this jointly with the province, the funding formula is 20%, right, that we pay?
The funding formula has changed with the province, so our cost-sharing requirements are locked in at, I think it's the 2010 level. Dollars from the province in recent years have not required matching. They've been 100% dollars. Nevertheless, I think if we were to achieve a $179 million investment, the city would have to make a contribution.
Would have to make a contribution. And what, you haven't thought through what a reasonable contribution? It used to be 2080.
It's about that, and I would stick to that. When you look at if you look at our overall budget now and split it between the city and provinces, it's at about 80-20.
Right, so, if we can afford a $65 million increase to the police budget, actually, that 179, when you really do the math, it would come to something like maybe 30 million to do our share if we had a provincial agreement.
Yes, I obviously
Not the
can't
yes, yeah.
guarantee the provincial part.
Yes. Okay, and tell me, would you like to comment on any of these, not now, but in a more reflected way?
I think
If
I would
were
have to take
move-
them back and look at them, Councillor.
Yeah, Okay, great, thank you.
Councillor Fletcher.
Just to staff, I'm just going to start off with the school-age program with full-day kindergarten. How successful is the school age now with transitioning the students that are in full-day kindergarten into a school-age program? I understand from a number of schools that not all of the children that are in full-day kindergarten who are in care, you know, truly full-day, are able to transition into a school-age program. And that's of concern.
That is a concern. We are closer than we thought. I'm blanking out, and it's not on the sheet, so my memory serves me right. There's about 26 programs. Yes, right. 26 programs where they have a before and after school program for full-day kindergarten, but not a corresponding school-age program. Our priority in the next year is to try to ensure that all of those locations have a corresponding program.
Yeah, sorry, is that 26 that have no school-age program?
They have no school-age
And then
program.
I'd like to know how many there are that have a full-day kindergarten that have a school age, but not everybody can get in. Now they're being denied simply because there's not enough spaces for the school age.
So I can't answer that right now,
Would you
Councillor.
be
I
able
have to do
get
that.
that information?
Fill that
Yes,
for you. I
okay.
can tell you
Thank
that there's 259 full-day schools with full-day kindergarten and school-age programs.
So I just have this motion, I'm just going to, you do have a copy of that now. The advanced circulation by the chair. And I'm just wondering if, and I might ask the, you or our acting deputy city manager, this is quite a few changes that we'd be making to this at the moment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 walk-on changes. Were you part of developing any of these with the councillor
No, I wasn't.
or with the mayor's office? Did you work with the mayor's office on this?
I did have a discussion on some of these issues with the mayor's staff.
And which ones of these do you think are easy and which ones of these are kind of big that we should be a little careful before we?
I got it when I'm sitting here, Councillor, so I haven't read through them in detail. As the commercial piece is a piece that I think is something that I'd be loath to enter into just because of the quality, health and safety issues. The others, I think I'd need to take away and have a bit of a look. Some of them are wordsmithing, but there's
Through the
other.
chair, I would concur with the general manager that staff would need some time to take a look at these. It's hard for us to comment. Some of them are somewhat significant in terms of policy issues, so we would appreciate a chance to look at them.
Thank you. So just even looking at the page 23 under National Child Care Initiatives, it's fairly detailed proposal that's being suggested there as far as the universal child benefit, et cetera. Is that something that you'd also like a chance to look at?
This one is potentially a challenge, Councillor, because what we have before committee is a staff service plan. This recommendation 2 changes what is in the staff recommended service plan.
Okay. So
Could I also just add that our staff recommended service plan, as I mentioned in my presentation, is based on extensive consultation. So it reflects heavily what we heard from parents and service providers across the city.
I guess it would. Sorry. So are you suggesting that the plan comes back again with some of this more detailed information?
What I'm suggesting through the chair, if committee has an interest in these amendments, that they refer them to staff.
Yes?
If committee has an interest, they refer them to staff. Otherwise, committee can dispose of it as they wish.
And then what happens to the main report? Then what happens to the main report?
Committee can determine whether it wants to put the report forward or bring it back to its next meeting.
Okay, so those are the options that we have with kind of a walk on there. Okay, thank you. Some are quite easy and others are a little more difficult. Thank you.
Could I just, as in my haste going through the presentation, I forgot to thank the staff that have been involved in this, and it's been a year of extensive work, research, and consultation. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank Karen Gray, who is the Director for Service System Planning and Children's Services, and her team, Emma, David, Brandon, and Lorraine, who are here to see today's proceedings, as well as staff back at Metro Hall, who were all actively engaged.
Okay, so thank you very much. Any other questions for staff? No, thank you very much. We go to a speakers list. Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? There's a deputant here, a Jane. Councillor Davis?
Okay. I have a motion that Councillor Fletcher is going to move on my behalf, and it requests, maybe it could just go on this,
Her motion? Sure.
on the screen. And what this motion does is it asks for the general manager to develop a multi-year growth strategy that is based on the principles contained in our report, and they're all there, which has to do with accessibility, affordability, quality, and breaks out and includes a number of scenarios to do with the responsibilities and financing roles for all three orders of government, and to find any necessary resources internally in the budget in order to fund this study. Members, I have to say I was completely shocked by the motions that have come forward with the chair, and I would rather start with those and emphasize why I think they are absolutely contrary to our existing policies. And I would ask that you absolutely defeat recommendation 1 and 10. Some of the others are, I would say 2 as well. 1, 2, and 10. And the others, though I haven't been through them all very closely, I think are less dangerous. Over many, many years in this country, not just in this city, in this country, we have worked to develop a national childcare system. And we, despite the statement made in number 2 in this motion, there was a national childcare strategy and there were federal provincial agreements signed for childcare in every province. And Toronto was poised to get $160 million annually more to expand childcare. And many of you remember Best Start, and we had a plan for Best Start. We now have, as you know, a government that chose to cancel the National Child Care Plan and chose instead to give token amounts in cash to families And most recently, many of the benefits that are now being talked about in the federal budget have been demonstrated not to be being spent on childcare and also not assisting families with real choices for childcare. We also have the prospect of potentially a government that might be elected in the next federal election that just might be committed to a national child care plan again. And one of the things that I want to say, our City of Toronto Children's Services staff and our child care system in the City of Toronto is respected worldwide. It is acknowledged right across the country as being leaders in developing accessible, high-quality childcare. And what we have before us is a 5-year service plan. And that service plan says, once again, we need to address the problems of equity, both geographic and age equity. We need to address the problems of affordability. You ask any family out there if they can afford childcare now in the City of Toronto if you don't have a fee subsidy, very few. And if you speak to families trying to find work who are on low income or social assistance, they too cannot find their way to sustainability because they cannot access a fee subsidy in the City of Toronto. We have many problems to tackle. But one of the things that we have done is we have essentially had very modest proposals for growth. And I understand why we have modest proposals for growth. Our staff have brought forward what they believe they can stand behind and recommend. I think it is our responsibility to step up and say, how do we develop a plan that addresses access, affordability, quality, and fee subsidies? And how do we do it over time that also assumes a federal and provincial role? The federal government must come to the table and commit to a national child care program like every developed country in this world. Canada has fallen to 14 of 14 OECD countries because of its failure to commit to a national child care program. And we have the ability to look at these roles. We have the ability to look at whether or not and how we can begin to seriously address childcare in the City of Toronto. So what my motion does, and it asks, and Councillor Fletcher is going to move it, let's look at some scenarios that are a bit more forward-looking, that look more aspirational at trying to achieve over a longer term and serving more children and families in the City of Toronto, but not through the for-profit sector. That is not the direction to go. Every bit of evidence and research has demonstrated that. Even our own Made in Toronto research done by Dr. Gordon Cleveland, who presented to us last year, demonstrated the quality is poor in the for-profit sector. The province and the school board and the City of Toronto have on many, many occasions confirmed we grandparent the commercial sector and we grow the nonprofit and public sector. And to do anything otherwise will jeopardize the quality and the future of our childcare system. So I urge you, members, defeat it. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. I'd just like to recognize in the audience today former Etobicoke Councillor Irene Jones. Hi, welcome. Next speaker, Councillor McConnell.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, I'd like to speak to the service plan. I think that it is a really important document. I think it is a way for us to move forward, and I think it has been thoroughly discussed. I think that we're at a crux here in childcare. In a sense, we got our dream come true. We got all-day kindergarten, but we were not able to dovetail two pieces together in order to resolve the issue. And I know because now we have children who normally had been half a day in childcare and half a day in kindergarten, not now having any childcare. I know that staff are working really hard on that. And I think that at the end of the day, the province's initiative will work out quite well for us, but we need a little time to resolve some of the hiccups. What I don't want us to do is to rush into something that then changes fundamentally the direction in which we have over all of these years at this moment in time been committed to. So I would recommend to the staff, to the committee, that at this moment in time we should be placing our thoughts on how to better serve the children that we have got, figure out with the province how to expand, but not to change the mandate of the way in which we deliver child care. That can be a discussion for another day, but I don't think it should be a quick decision. I also think that this whole notion of $100 per month moving into $160 per month is misguided. I think that it is very much focused towards election time rather than a good child care system. And just now there's a huge jurisdictional battle between the provinces and the federal government as to whose jurisdiction it is and therefore whose dollars. So at this moment in time, tomorrow we'll hear from the federal government. We will hear what their initiatives are in their new budget. I believe that as we move through this, I entirely agree that this monies that are going into families and the way in which it's being distributed are not being targeted to child care, and as a result are not making the best bang for children who need daycare. So, but I do think that I'd recommend that we not jump too hastily. And that we be very careful about big box child care. We know that there's an expansion in the commercial industry right now. We know that there are new players, particularly players from the United States, who are coming into Toronto and right across the country. And I don't think that at the moment we know what the outcome of their care is. What we do know is that our system is one of the best in the world. Unfortunately, unlike Quebec, we don't have the right finances going into it, and we've been doing it on a shoestring. And I believe, having had children and now grandchildren in our child care system, that the one that is presented to us is quality, licensed, and allows most of us to go to work and to not worry about where our children are. And how they're growing up. So I just caution us a little slow, a little think about it, perhaps have staff take some further look, but also let's not be too premature. There's a very good election coming down very shortly, and there's a budget tomorrow. So let's see how the federal government manages this very important question as to how we grow our young children. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McConnell. Anyone else to speak? Councillor Mihevc?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm going to support this report. I know I was consulted on it. I know they did great consultations in my ward. They did great consultations across the city. As a number of, as I think Councillor Davis pointed out, we have one of the best child care departments in the country, I'm frankly, Mr. Chair, I'm troubled by your motions. I'm troubled, A, that you did not discuss this with staff, because some of these are pretty basic game changers. I don't know if you're doing this on your own or at the behest of other parties who perhaps were or were not engaged in the process. I don't know how this has come forward, but frankly, some of these are absolutely not acceptable. We will, if the childcare community knew that you were putting these forward, this place would be packed wall to wall, and we'd have to have an overflow room in Committee Room 1, 3, 4, and maybe council chambers. Like I've learned in my political life, don't mess with the childcare system, the not-for-profit childcare system. They are passionate. It's mama bears, mostly mama bears, defending their kids. And they want a good quality system in Toronto, and we've worked hard to develop it and to build it, and that's the report that you have in front of you. So the ones a few of them are little typo things. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are fine, and number 11 is fine. But the others, I think, Mr. Chair, are frankly unacceptable and are not worthy of this committee's support, and I'll be voting against them. Thank you.
Thank you for your emotional speech of support. Any other, anyone else to speak before? Councillor Fletcher, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And I'm going to move the motion up on the screen that was put up for overall multi-year strategy for childcare, access, equity, affordability, and the number of investment scenarios from other levels of government. I'm just going to also say that this has been a long road for childcare here. Those of us who've been on the committee previously, and for the new members and you as a new chair, a full-day kindergarten was just a really difficult, heavy lifting for the childcare sector in order to make sure that families had care at the same time as we were moving to a brand new system. So, and I think it's very important that when we have this service plan and this review, that we don't throw things in at the last minute that might be game changers or might simply actually be a brand new policy. I'm quite disturbed by that, and I really think it's a very bad way to work. I think it's a very bad way to work, including for our staff. So Mr. Chair, I am speaking directly to you and your motion now as being a way to work that I don't think we should work like this in this committee. I don't think we should force our staff to work like this, and I don't think we should have the childcare community that has simply been through, I'll call it that movie, To Hell and Back. That's where they've been with full-day kindergarten and trying to accomplish the unaccomplishable, which was keeping kids in care, figuring out what to do with school boards that didn't want to have childcare, that just wanted to have full-day kindergarten. And here we are now with the plan to go forward, and I'm quite concerned some of these motions that got walked on. If that was the direction that the staff and from the acting DCM had intended, then I'm sure they would have put that forward there. So I'm not sure if this is a new plan from the mayor's office or it's a new plan simply from yourself, Mr. Chair, but I think perhaps that we have some newness, and there's a way we're managing childcare here. It's been very successful in the face of everything. We have a great childcare system, and yes, the quality is very high. It's one of the things that we found out with full-day kindergarten, with EAs. All of a sudden, we have a system where children in kindergarten are not getting a meal at lunch, but they have to stay there all day, and children in this childcare are getting a meal because full-day learning didn't mean that child development and feeding children was part of full-day learning. So this has been a really big hill to climb, and I think we should not throw a big wrench into this at this moment, at the beginning of this committee, and at the first moment that we're looking at childcare. And I feel very strongly about that. We have an anti-poverty strategy. We have a system that supported the vulnerable and the weak on childcare for decades. And to walk on a change, I don't think it's the responsible thing for this committee to do at this point, such a major change. There are some things in your motion, Mr. Chair, which are fine, which we can do today, but other things that are so large that I think we would set off unintended consequences that aren't necessary at this moment for this system. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Any other speakers? No? I guess it's my turn. I have two sets of motions.
Two sets. Where's the second?
Yeah, the first set is really for reports back, so we continue to make educated and thoughtful decisions about policy, about funding, and this will certainly help us in the Budget Committee as we go forward and as we try and target our dollars so that it helps families, it helps
great.
children,
Good motions.
and it helps reduce poverty, but also ensure prosperity. The second motion, which has been advanced circulated, is a series of edits which strengthens our child care system, which, because there's some concerns around the table, we'll vote on them ad seriatim. You can support, obviously, the ones you like, and the ones you don't like. As a father of four, my kids are grown now, but I can tell you childcare stories from every end of the spectrum. Finding childcare we can trust, finding childcare that's flexible, finding childcare that's affordable in a family with two working parents. And at a time when my wife was working at one end of the city and I was working at another, and picking up kids at certain times and getting strollers onto TTC buses, it was not an easy time. And so I empathize with those who face those same kinds of challenges. We have before us, I'll speak to some of the concerns before us, approximately 3,000 children in licensed in-home care. And we provide the support, the logistics, the knowledge, and the subsidies to those operations. At the same time, we follow wherever our subsidies may travel, the portability of them. We follow all provincial statutes. I urge you to think long and hard about the parents and families on this waiting list of almost 17,000 who cannot get a subsidy, who cannot get into licensed daycare. And I worry about the glass ceiling that you're reinforcing, the closed doors that you're sealing, and the inability to make sure that families who need the best for their children under a licensed umbrella with a subsidy cannot expand what we're already doing in our home care area. I urge you to write out to the members of your various communities who have been waiting for years, who have been looking to improve their personal status through a course or a degree that they cannot take because they don't have affordable, available, licensed daycare. Those who would like to participate in the workforce are inhibited from doing so because of the constraints that we're putting on ourselves and not looking at system expansion. Not-for-profit, we currently do partnerships with for-profit organizations in the housing area. Rent supplement agreements are agreements to help families reduce their rent, and those are agreements with private sector operators of apartment buildings. At the same time, we're currently working with fully licensed home daycare, which is in many ways the private sector. Even the non-for-profit, which is service delivery, is run under the Income Tax Act as basically a private sector organization. It is not charitable. It is nonprofit, but under the Income Tax Act, it is clearly a private sector organization that we pour thousands of subsidies into. That having been said, I think we can't close our mind to the option of making sure families receive licensed, accessible daycare. We're constrained on the current approach we're doing now. Staff were given a heads up by the mayor's office that we wanted to look at maybe creating more elasticity with some of our home care options, which 3,000 children are currently involved in. If they think it's so awful, they should have shut it down years ago. These are safe, protected, licensed, subsidized spots. So with that being said, I know the hour's getting late, and we do certainly have other items on the agenda. So we have a few motions, and we can put them on the screen and start voting them. Unless there's one more speaker, that would be it. On motion A, the advanced circulation motion, when it comes up, we'll vote on it ad seriatim. So motion 1, Councillor Fletcher's motion. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Oh, you like those? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And here we go. On ad seriatim, we will go through it one by one. On item 1, all those in favor? All those opposed? That is defeated. Item 2, all those in favor? All those opposed? That loses. Item 3, all those in favor? That carries. Item 4, all those in favor? That carries. Item 5, all those in favor? That carries. Item 6, all those in favor? That carries as well. Item 7, all those in favor? That carries. Item 8, all those in favor? Opposed? That does not carry. Item 9, all those in favor? Just wait a second. No, that's it? All those in favor? Okay, opposed? That doesn't carry. Item number 10. All those in favor? Opposed? That doesn't carry. 11. Those in favor? Opposed? That carries. The item is amended. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Oh, the item is amended if we could. It was unanimous. Do you want to redo it?
Do the recorded vote.
Okay. The
All
item
those
is,
in favor of the item as amended? Counselor Burnside, Counselor Fletcher, Counselor Pasternak, Counselor Cole, Counselor Bailao, and Counselor Mihevik. It's carried.
no? We had one deputant for item 4. I understand Miroslav Glavik is not here. It's too bad. I was hoping to hear his insights. Okay, so questions for staff? You have a motion for this item? Okay. No questions for staff? Speakers? Councillor Ainsley.
Thank you. I actually went offline. I had my questions addressed earlier, basically dealing with the city website and accessibility and how we deal with linkages for getting parents with special needs children to work their way through the city website and the fund guide. So I do have a motion that Councillor Burnside has gone beyond his one motion limit for me of the day. He's doing a second one for me.
Living on the edge.
That the report from the General Manager, Parks, Forestry and Recreation also include opportunities to add appropriate website links to the fund guide and cross-connect pages within the recreation section.
Any other, okay, we have one motion on the floor. Any other speakers on the matter?
Felt like a minute.
No? Councillor Burnside, you're going to move the motion?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm the one that brought this item here because I think it's a vital conversation that we have to have in our recreation area because we have a growing number of children and young adults with complex exceptionalities, and we have to make sure that we stay current, that we stay relevant, and that we have a wide range of programs to accommodate. And I have no illusions, this is no easy piece, and that much of our offering in the special ed area is quite strong now. But there are ongoing reviews, but at the same time, I think it is an urgent and top priority to make sure that our city, City of Toronto, is known as a place where we have such an expansive offering of special recreation programs that accommodate exceptionalities and special needs that no one is left behind. So we'll vote first on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And on the main item? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, so this item 6 was regarding the partnership with the Toronto Star newspapers. I did have a motion to kind of respond to those who come forward and say, well, why are we only getting one paper? We're simply asking the General Manager of Parks, Forestry and Recreation to write the other two main Toronto dailies to ask if they're interested in the same arrangement. It was held down because of some concerns, so I'll throw it out to questions for staff.
I just have a question. Did you write to the Toronto Star and ask them if they would like to put those newspapers into the rec centers at some point?
Through you, Mr. Chair, my understanding is that the original proposal came from the Star to the city. It wasn't an outreach from the city to the Star.
Okay, so anybody could outreach and suggest that they wanted to do that.
If that was the case, we'd certainly do the due diligence that we did on the Toronto Star proposal and report back to council if we needed that authority to move forward with it.
Right, so really, it's wide open. If people want to do that, they can simply come and do that. We
It's a
don't,
non-exclusive agreement.
yeah, so I'll speak to that, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions for staff? No? Speakers list? Councillor Fletcher?
I am... Can we see the motion? Yeah, the motion is to ask for, I believe, to write to the other two major dailies. I think there's way more papers than two major dailies. I think, no, there's a lot of newspapers in the city of Toronto, and then there's all the neighborhood ones, there's the Mirrors, there's there's Extra, there's Now, there's other dailies. So I just think they took the initiative and said, we'd like to have our paper there. If others want to take the initiative and say, I'd like to have our paper there, then we should deal with it. But I don't think we should be exclusive in asking two, or I think we asking for trouble to say everybody. So if people have an idea, bring it forward and let them come in, just as the general manager indicated. The Toronto Star came in. So I'm not boosting the Star. I just think we're opening a really big can of worms. If whoever those other two are, you mean, and I think if we say leading papers, then we're going to get challenged by folks that say, well, I have a weekly and I want it in the community center at Flemington, or I want it in the community center at Jimmy Simpson. So that's why I think that it's a lot of staff time is going to get eaten up. They hear the motion, they want to come in, come ahead. We have ways to do that. We have mechanisms in the city to accommodate those who want to do things with us, rather than reach out in that way. So that's why I'm not going to support it, Mr. Chair. Not because I don't want more newspapers, but because I think that there's a mechanism already, and I don't want to overburden the system. I don't want to set something up where we're going to have to say, well, this one can come in and that one can't, because we've not asked everybody equally. And I don't want to set a system up where we're going out to ask every single newspaper to come in to every center, because then there won't be any. So that's it.
Councillor Mahavik. Oh,
I'm deciding whether I'm going to or not, so go.
Mr. Chair, I kind of actually frankly agree with Councillor Fletcher on this one. You know, if Home Depot, as happened in actually Hyde Park, I think it was Home Depot, offers to help when there's a fire at a playground, we don't send a letter out to Rona and to Lowe's and to everybody else to say, hey, how about you guys? It's a little bit of it waters down, frankly, the donation that is given. Toronto Star came to us, gave us a donation. Thank you very much. That's the appropriate response. Not, thank you very much, and we're going to all the other newspapers now. It's,
You could make
thank
a
you very
donation,
much.
too.
That's it. We should express our gratitude and kind of get on with it. So I suggest you withdraw it, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Burnside.
For different reasons, I'm going to support Councillor Fletcher on this one. I think, you know, the Toronto Star has taken the initiative, and I think we want to encourage people to be creative and to take the initiative, not to discourage that by saying, oh, well, you've taken initiative, that's a great idea, we'll call everyone else, all the lazy people that didn't take the initiative. So Toronto Stars, I think that's good enough for me.
Councillor Cole.
This is a good, quick item. I will actually speak, I don't disagree with what I've heard from my colleagues, but I speak in favor of the motion. And maybe it's because I'm stuck at Roding Arena at 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning and desperate for a newspaper. But I do think that, you know, it's not going to cost anything. It's not going to hurt. And why not write? I don't know who those leading dailies are, but encourage some other material there for our users and residents.
Waste that is there?
Any other speakers before I chime in? If we could put I'll move the motion, and if the staff could put it on the screen. I'm sorry you're missing the point, so I will explain it in more detail. What we're getting back from the Star is actually quite impressive. We're getting a value of about $236,000 for twice yearly publication of 4-page Discovery Parks, Forestry, and Recreation insert. And here are staff words, and I quote, which aims to increase awareness and participation in parks, forestry, recreation programs, activities available to the public. Now, if we really want as many people leveraging our city assets, our recreation programs, our parks, our facilities, we want to have as broad a reach as possible. Now, I don't know what the likelihood of one or two of the other main dailies in the city are participating in this, but let's face it, people subscribe to newspapers and read newspapers. Some people would read the Star or the Post or the Globe, and there's a little bit of crossover, but not always. So we would be potentially reaching out to many people in our varied communities who would not normally be participating in our various community programs and our recreation programs. At the same time, I think it's very important that we make it clear, although the staff report does say it's a non-exclusive agreement, I think we have to go through a formal execution of a letter that we may never get a response to, where we can sit here and honestly say, we reached out to the other main dailies, we made this offer similar to what's in place now, asking them to participate, and then we either got a response or we didn't, and we'd be able to say that. I think the execution of these letters would probably take maybe 20 minutes and a stamp on them, and they're on their way, and the city has done its due diligence, it's done its transparency, and it has met its moral obligation to reach out to a wide a population as possible throughout Toronto through this kind of shared agreement. And that is the rationale for this motion.
Question of you. Did the staff tell you that you had to write that motion, that there'd be a problem if this motion was not in place?
No.
Okay,
No.
thank you.
All right, well, the motion's on the screen? Okay, great. Okay, so let's vote on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? That doesn't carry. And on the item as amended? Those in favor? Oh, the main report. The main item. The main, we're moving the main item. The newspaper agreement. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, so where do we go now? All righty. Councillor Mihevc, you held item number 7.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the only question I have of staff, and I really do apologize for holding you all day on this. On page 2 of the report, it talks about, I realize and I certainly appreciate the province is giving more than it was going to give before, but are they giving enough? We asked for more money than they're giving on the per diem side, which I guess pays the mortgage, to allow the reconstruction to be partially funded. My question is what does that mean in terms of the additional cost to the city for them not paying the amount that we had initially anticipated and asked for, which was, I think, $19, something like that, per diem, and we're only getting $16.65. That's my question.
Councillor, through the chair, to respond to the question, is it enough? I suppose it would always be nice to have more in construction funding. The amount that was requested by City Council was $17.50, and the amount that the government is now giving is $16.65, which does represent a 25% increase over the previous construction per diem.
And is that's capped, isn't it? So we will have to do $16.65 for each and every one of these 5 projects. Is that correct?
That is currently the message that we have received from the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care.
So if we, well, I don't know what the order will be, but I know this is about a 10-year plan, if I'm not mistaken, given the kind of transitions they have to go in. That 1665 is a declining 1665, given that the capital costs will be going up at least at the inflation rate. Is that correct?
That is correct, Councillor. However, the previous plan that was announced in 2008 was $13.30, and that was anticipated to be over a 10-15-year period. I suppose the one concession that was not requested by the city, but is part of the ministry or the provincial government's plan, is the retroactive application. So for the City of Toronto, that would involve Kipling Acres, where there will be additional construction funding applied to that project as well.
Oh, so that's going to be at 1665?
That is correct.
Right, okay. Okay, those are my questions, Mr. Chair. Can I speak to it?
Any other questions for staff? Okay, let's go to speakers list. Councillor Mihevc?
Yes, I'm happy to move the motion. Of course, we are grateful for the increase from 1350 to 1665, and that's just for what that is, for those who perhaps are watching or haven't read the report, that represents a $3 increase on the per diem, and the per diem is being used to pay off the cost of borrowing so that we can basically construct and reconstruct these buildings. Our cost, though, is $17.50, and it will increase over the years to come. So, you know, I guess this is one of those half glass half full, half glass empty kinds of things. They gave enough to perhaps allow us to be happy, partially, but not enough for us to basically cover costs. And they've also guarded themselves against, you folks have to eat the rest. So they've protected their financial interests, and you can bet your life in the newspapers in 5 years, 10 years, 6 years down the road, when one of these projects goes slightly over budget or within budget, but the budget is larger because time has elapsed, that we're going to wear it. And my only urging to, frankly, staff and to Toronto's public is first to be aware of this and really to push back to the province. Like, there should be an inflation clause in this. In fact, maybe for council, I'd ask that one be prepared. I'm happy to move it at council. At least an inflation clause so that it's not 1665 according to today's costs, but according to, well, costs as they might be 5 or 10 years down the road when some of these 5 places are being built. But of course we're grateful, but it's also, I think we also have to say it's a bit bittersweet. The sweet part is understandable, but the bitter part is the way they control their costs and basically dump it on us as a city to control any vagaries in the way the costs may escalate in the years to come. So those are my comments. And this is going to be a big ticket item for us on the capital side in the years to come. This is not small dollars.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Mihevc. As an FYI, this item would not go to council, so if you want to change it, it has to be here.
Okay, so maybe then I would move, sorry, it's on the fly. Sorry? Okay, send it to council then, okay. And then what I'll do at council, Mr. Chair, so totally above board and transparent and all of that, is the only motion that I would move at council is basically to request, and I'll ask staff to write it, to request the province to include an inflation index in the per diem that they're giving to the city.
Okay, fair enough. So that item, we'll just put it up on the screen just as an FYI. We're probably going to amend this at council, so we're going to make sure it goes. Motion's on the screen.
Wait, it's actually to go to council.
No, but that's how we,
Oh, that's how you get it?
yeah, that's how we're getting it there.
Great, okay.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. So item 12, item 10, questions for staff?
No, I don't think I held that.
I held it.
John Mihevc held that.
Mr. Chair, I'm ready.
Oh, yes.
I'm ready.
Yes, yes, sorry, you have held it, yes.
I'm ready to let it go.
I know it looked like I held
My
it.
advice to my colleague councillors, don't get caught in the lunch line with Philip Abraham.
You what?
Ready to let it go.
You ready to let it go?
Number 10. Don't get caught in the lunch line with staff that are, whose items you're holding.
Yeah, you know what?
Lesson.
I would just have one question for staff, actually.
Sure, well,
All right?
it's your meeting.
Once again, the sentence that jumps off the page is the 90-day notice period, and that's why we're in a situation where we've got to find multiple new locations for our shelters. Is that statutory? Is that legislative? Is that just an industry standard? Is there any way to get a better deal when it comes to notice periods?
Yeah, we're working with legal to try to change that. It's something that historically has been part of the agreements that predates me by many, many years. And we would like to, if we can, have a much longer period. So we're working on that.
If it's a so-called quasi-commercial lease, it seems very short notice period.
This is the purchase of service agreements with the agencies, and I think it is something that we can negotiate differently with the agencies. So we're working on it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for staff? No? Okay. To move receipt? All those in favor? We're moving receipt for information. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, I'd held the item, but I'd be prepared to release at this point. Are there any questions for staff? It's number 12. Okay, Councillor Bello?
So you are asking us to oppose the recommendation to have one staff person for a group of 20 children aged 9 to 12.
Province is recommending that they have one staff in regulations, draft regulations, that they have one staff person per group of 20 in that age group, and we're recommending against it.
So what do we have now? Is it 15?
1 to 15.
And what do we have? What do they have in full-day kindergarten?
Well, it's 1 to 13.
They have 1 to 13 in full-day kindergarten,
Yes,
and they're
but
recommending
there's
1 to 20
Yes.
in children's services?
Sorry. Full-day kindergarten is 1 to 13 with 2 staff members and 26 children in a room. The province is proposing for school-age children 1 to 20, and we are recommending against that because we think it's too large a ratio to keep track of that many very active children.
So if they're not doing it themselves, why are they recommending us to do 1 to 20?
This is regulations that they're proposing to go ahead with the replacement for the Day Nurseries Act. So they're on the record and they're open for input from the various partners between now and the middle of May. So this is what we are proposing be submitted as the city's position in these regulations. Nothing is firm yet. They're seeking feedback.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Councillor Davis?
Clarify the other regulation changes that were proposed for home-based childcare?
For home-based childcare, there was a removal, again, these are proposed for feedback. There was a removal on the cap of the number of children with extra support needs in a home. We've recommended against that. There was a proposal that 2 home providers with 12 children could operate in a single home. We've recommended against that. It does not make sense in the City of Toronto, where most home childcare providers are in smaller homes, and there just is not the physical capacity. And they've also increased the number of children that can be accommodated in a home up to 6 children, and that's with a view to making it more financially viable for the operator, with no more than 3 children under the age of 3.
And I attended a conference that had people from all over the province. Is it fair to say that many municipalities and early childhood experts, for lack of a better word, also share your concerns about these regulatory changes?
Yes, that is true. There are some areas where they'll support some of these initiatives, but by and large, the experts do not support the direction.
And have we not also been quite concerned about home-based childcare just because we've seen many tragedies in home-based childcare in the last few years? Unregulated, unlicensed.
That's correct. And the first launch of regulations from the province is focused on trying to address some of the issues that arose outside of the City of Toronto, fortunately, with respect to health and safety and home-based childcare that was not regulated. So they're looking at what kind of fees and penalties can be put in place.
Just finally, I was surprised to see this coming back again. I thought this had been resolved and the provincial government had decided not to move forward. Was this renewed call for input recent?
No, what had happened was the last round, we sought input and provided input on the actual legislation, the Early Years Act. Attached to the initial draft of the legislation, they had proposed a first round of regulations. Across the province, municipalities and service providers urged them to put off the regulations until further study could be undertaken. So the legislation passed, but none of the regulations went forward, and this is them now bringing them forward.
Okay.
And they're proposing to do it in 3 phases.
Has OMSA taken a position on these?
Not yet, but I am now on the OMSA board and plan to raise it at the next board meeting.
Okay. That's it for my questions, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions for staff? Go to speakers. Take a speakers list. Councillor Davis.
This is a small but very important report. We have a provincial government that is proposing to change the day nursery standards, although they're no longer day nursery standards. Child and youth legislation is called
The Early Years Act.
the Early Years Act. That would significantly erode the standards of supervision in both home-based childcare and school-age programs. And I think the City of Toronto, again, as a leader in the province, should support the recommendations from our professional staff. And in fact, I would suggest, and maybe I will make the motion when it comes to council, that we circulate it to other large municipalities and, yeah, to other large municipalities and to OMSA, send it to OMSA. So that's it. Thank you.
That's it? Oh, okay. Anyone else to speak on the item? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. We're done. Okay. Thank you very much. We are adjourned.